All right, MMTC, it is your president, Tim Dels, back from a long weekend of camping over the 4th of July. Hope everybody had a great one. Um, we have a unique opportunity today. We are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Rob Vigorito. If you have been in the sport for, if you were in the sport, say pre 2015 or so, and even up to maybe COVID, you definitely knew Vigo's name. If it was pre 2015, you definitely ran into him at a race or out on the roads in Columbia, Ellicott City, riding his fancy painted bicycles with European monuments on them and things like that. Um, Vigo was kind of the guy. For those of you who don't know who he is, and that's why we're bringing him in, he was at the forefront of development of triathlon in the Mid Atlantic, especially, but also in the country. He was one of the original people to put together organization for what became USA Triathlon, our founding body, our organization here in the country. He started, if I got this right, because I checked it with you, the very first Columbia Triathlon was in 1984. Because you saw it on Wide World of Sports and got together with your friends and said, let's just put an event on instead of let's just go sign up for one to race. Is that correct, Vigo?
Yeah, that's pretty close. Yep.
Pretty close. So, give you a little background on Vigo. Awesome athlete in his own right, six-time finisher in Kona for the Hawaii Ironman. Um, Founded the Columbia Triathlon Association, like I said, starting with Columbia Tri in '84, became Tri Columbia in 1987. At the beginning of '87, which is what most of us that have been around a long time know and remember. Put on awesome races. The Columbia Tri at Centennial Lake, which was massive and always had big, awesome pro fields and that kind of stuff. He is the guy who brought us Eagle Man. He is the guy that brought us, I guess before it was the Cambridge Full that then became Chesapeake Man, that is eventually what we now know as Ironman Maryland. He helped Ironman themselves with a bunch of stuff. He in 2001 was honored and recognized by the International Olympic Committee for remarkable contribution to the development of sport and Olympism and to the promotion of friendship and solidarity among peoples. Pulled that direct from the Triathlon magazine article there, Big O. That's pretty awesome. I didn't know that. Um, Co-founder USAT Mid Atlantic in '93 and was the chairman for that for a very long time, basically till your retirement, right? All right. So I'm gonna let him tell the stories. He's gonna share some of the stories of the development and the growth and the explosion of the sport, basically up to through his retirement, and then we'll cover a little on how the sport has continued since then. And we just thought it would be a nice kind of educational thing because we have a lot of newer athletes that are kind of post COVID people, which is great. And this way you guys could get a little background on where we came from. So, turning it over to you, Vigo.
Thanks, Tim. First of all, congratulations to Tim, your current board, and all those involved with MMTC. I remember the first years of MMTC back in the day, and I'm honored to be on your Hall of Fame, I believe, in perpetuity,
That's right.
and many good meetings at Princeton Sports. Big thanks, Alan Davis, for all the years of support for all, not only our races, but certainly for the club. And the Tim will recall on the day how many bike rides and runs started at Princeton, ended at Princeton. Alan was always a presence at all of our Columbia-based events. So thanks to MMTC for all you've done to promote the sport in the region, in the state, and nationwide by your presence and your excitement. I follow what you do and your races, having a tent at Eagle Man, a tent in Columbia, et cetera, et cetera. It's really a great thing, and it's a great source of camaraderie. It's much like we have here in Naples, and I'll go into that a little later. So I live in Naples, Florida now. We left Columbia in 2019. We built a house in 2009 when I officially retired from University of Maryland School of Medicine and built a home here in Naples, Florida, which is God's country for sport. And just, it reminds me of Hawaii in so many ways. But Naples is great. We've got a huge triathlon club, an Ironman club, Naples Velo Cycling Club, Gulf Coast Running Club, and it's really a great place. If you're an athlete, you can't have anything better than having 12 months of summer and spring to ride and race and whatnot. So back in 1978, you may recall Columbia, I should say, triathlon started in 1976, San Diego at the Run Bike Run event, and Scott Tinley was among the first ones there, and that's how it started. And from there, it progressed. 1978 was a big deal when it moved from the Big Island to, I'm sorry, from Oahu to the Big Island. And I got a chance to meet the original race director, Valerie Silk, back in the day. My first Kona was 1991. And then I did it five other times, qualifying in those other 5 years. But the biggest honor for me, probably among the biggest honors, was about 8, 9 years ago at an event in downtown Washington to honor the Marine Corps, I think 200th anniversary of the Marine Corps. I met a guy named Tom Knoll, Knoll. Tom was among the first 12 individuals to participate in the first Ironman, 1978, and on Oahu, and and he showed me that I had a copy of a picture of the trophy, kind of a stick man of iron nuts and bolts. Tom's written a couple of books on how it all started. You might want to check that out. Tom Knoll. He passed away about 4 years ago. He was back and forth to DC. He was a decorated Marine, ran several cross country and races in Japan and Oahu, or I'm sorry, Okinawa, where he was stationed. Great honor to meet Tom. Became a very close personal friend of mine.
If I remember correct, Vigo, you had him come and speak to the club.
That's correct.
It was right after he released his book, "Why Not a Million," about the charity that he was doing for the kids, if I
Yep.
remember correct.
That's very true, very correct. He
Yeah,
spoke, I think, at Princeton Sports.
that's right.
Great guy, real good friend of mine. And I was very sad to see him pass away, but he was just a great, great guy. Did a lot of things for charity in his running. He finished, I think, eighth in the first Ironman, and he actually ran almost just over 4 hours in the day, if you can imagine that. And of course, the winning time 11:50. I think it was 11:50. I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name who won the first one, but anyway, so I was like many, watched the Ironman on ABC's Wide World of Sports with Maryland's own Jim McKay. Saw the race, and next thing I'm at the Columbia Athletic Club with a bunch of guys: Miles Weigold, Sam Levine, Vince Campagna, uh, Ray Patricia. All of us were part of Howard County Striders. Miles was the president at the time. Again, this is back in 79, 80, 81. And we said, we're in a hot tub at the athletic club. And this came up and we said, you see that triathlon thing? What the hell? You know what? Maybe we ought to try to do that. Nah, we can't do that. I said, we can do it. Come on. So at the time, the great Sally Edwards out of California had written a book, How to Do a Triathlon. She became an international celebrity in triathlon and running. And we bought her book, How to Do a Triathlon. And I I photocopied the pages. One person had transition area, one had to run, the bike, the swim, medical, and that's how we did it. And the first two races were in the Columbia Athletic Club swimming pool, um, and it was run, bike, swim, and the swim was 1K in the pool, which was last.
Oof.
First year we had 90 people showed up, 1984. Year two we had 120, and that was basically the max. We had lap counters and whatnot. The great Reggie Hahn. You may know Reggie
Mhm.
won the first. He won the first Columbia Tri officially in 1984 in the pool. Was a great soccer player from Australia and a great swimmer. Second next year in '82, I'm now drawing a blank on his name from Ellicott City. Steve, no, Steve. Oh boy, it'll come to me. He won year two, and then I said, "No, this is going to grow. We got to get out of here." And they said, "Where are you going to go?" I said, we're going to go on Wild Lake." You're out of your mind. Go on Wild Lake? You crazy? The county and the county board to swim in Wild Lake. I said, "You don't know me." So I went to the county, talked to the county reps, Parks and Rec, Columbia Council. They said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." "You realize, you got to get it tested?" I said, "Yeah, I know what we got to do." So I brought in the right people from the health department. We had it tested for coliforms and whatnot. In year three, we had 225 people participate in Wild Lake, and it was great. It was now run the swim bike run, and we in the day wave starts had just become a thing, and we put them in waves, men only, women only, et cetera, by 5 year age groups. And it went over like a charm. People were like, "Oh my God, this is great." And the fourth year, same thing. And then we were up to almost 500 in Wild Lake, and that was about the max we could do. So, about the same time, I decided to run for the board, national board, which in the day was called Tri-Fed USA, Colorado Springs. And I ran for the board and got elected to the national board. I served two 4 year terms, became vice president of the national board. And then the idea of regions came up in the late 80s. And Andy Weissel, an attorney, and myself got together, wrote the bylaws, and USAT Mid Atlantic began in 1993. And eventually we would grow to be one of the biggest regions in the country, a forerunner of triathlon aside from Southern California. But we became the place to do triathlons. And eventually, as you know, numerous other race directors surfaced, among them Neil Semmel in Delaware, my good friend Steve Del Monte in New Jersey. Uh, what's his name? Uh,
Ken.
from North Carolina and Virginia.
Oh, the guy who used to
Bill
be yeah.
Fisk.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill Fisk and his sports group. Anyway, and that's where it grew. So um, we promulgated a lot of new rules and regulations, created regional and state championships, put them out to bid, and we were off to the races in terms of regional events. Um, Eventually, the uh, after that, the we progressed on 1990, and of course then Tri-Fed eventually became USA Triathlon, and they decided to put on national championships. And I bid in 1997 for the national championship at Columbia Tri. We won it. That year, we became Race of the Year. We had just over 2,000 participants, every top amateur. And then the first year in 1997, you may know a guy named Timmy DeBoom, became Ironman world champion. Timmy became a good friend of mine. He raced and won it. The race was so popular, it was voted Race of the Year by USA Triathlon, and they gave it to us again in 1998. And the same thing, and again, Timmy came back and won it again. And of course, Timmy then went on to a storied career as a pro triathlete. A side note, Timmy became the first American to do one of the world's toughest triathlons, the Norseman in Norway. And he won that and set the world record for that particular race. If you ever heard of Norseman, look about it, look it up. It's a phenomenal race in many, many ways. Uh, I think I think Ironman Kona pales in comparison to Norseman. But anyway, um, so moving on into the year 2000, we become very popular. All of our races got to the point where within a week or 2 weeks at most, Columbia filled. We decided the max was 2,500. 1988, I figured we outgrew Wild Lake, so Centennial Lake was next. You're not going to use Centennial Lake. Are you kidding me? For all the goose lay eggs and shit and all that crap? You got to be kidding. Well, I went to the county and they said, "You're not serious." I said, "Look, I did economic impact studies. We were bringing in just over $1 million to the county between the races. There were people taking up hotel rooms, renting cars, many people flying in actually from around the country, especially the pros, which was really great. So they said, okay, we'll test the lake and this and that. And they did. So 1987, uh, Columbia Tri-Centennial Lake was born, and that's the way it went until 2012, which was the last one, I think.
13.
And every year we were at 2,500 max,
Mhm.
2,600. One of the biggest races, the biggest race on the East Coast, one of the biggest in the country. We were always in competition with Memphis in May, which I understand is still going on after 35, 38 years.
Yep.
It was the same weekend, and I got to know them very well. We always kidded each other about, you can bring your race on the same day as mine. I said, you're in Memphis, I'm in Columbia. And each race would have 2,500, 3,000 people. Then we brought in eventually in 87, I decided we needed bigger presence. So talked to the Sheraton Hotel, became good friends with the management, and we started the Tri-Columbia Expos, which were hugely successful. Brought in vendors from around the country. It was just made it basically a 3-day weekend, 4-day weekend. Everybody loved it. I mean, really did our best to bring in the top talent, and I think it made it a great, great weekend.
Side note on the Sheridan, any club members, back then spent a lot of hours in that Sheridan,
Yes, you
volunteering,
did.
stuffing packets,
Yep,
and eating pizzas, and
you got it.
you had an indoor expo that had 40 vendors, which
Yeah,
they don't have 40 vendors at an Ironman expo now. It
yeah,
was man, that was cool though. It was like you knew everybody because everybody was
yep,
stuffing packets every year.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
fun,
Usually
man.
on that Tuesday, Wednesday, you guys came out, a lot of volunteers. In '87, when I formed a nonprofit, you should all know that over the years of Tri Columbia, I had it calculated. We distributed near $8 million in charitable contributions to any number of different causes, particularly team and training. You may have heard, may remember them. The Ulman Cancer Fund, and many, many others.
Yeah.
And we got to the point like Ironman where you were, buying lottery slots.
Yep.
We were selling lottery slots, the same thing, and these charities would buy them up, sell them off. We never charge them anything, and that's how they made an exceptional amount of money for their particular charity. In 2005, I was racing in Florida, the famous St. Anthony's Triathlon in St. Pete. Ran into Judy Molnar, and Judy had been hired by Ironman to promote women in triathlon. She knew about my events. She came up to me and said, "Rob, do you have any interest in becoming the first Iron Girl women's triathlon?" I said, "Of course." So 2006, well, before that, I signed the contract with Ironman and her. And she said, we only have one event. It's a duathlon in Minnesota. We eventually want to have 7 or 8 events, but we need something to kick it off. And triathlon's got to be it. Do you think you can do it? I said, absolutely. And of course, was the birth of Iron Girl. Got a lot of flack in the beginning. Iron Girl, it's Iron Man. Why isn't Iron Woman? Well, and we convinced people that Iron Girl was a cool thing. So Iron Girl debuted in 2006 at Columbia in this summer, actually in late August.
August, yeah.
Picked that date, and Centennial Lake made it available. And again, I told them what it was for. It was all charitable events, all women. And of course, women in sport was becoming more and more a big deal, both politically and in athletics. So Judy, when I signed the contract, she said, "Rob, we get about 200 for our duathlon. So how many women do you think you'll get for the first Iron Girl?" I said, "Well, given our history, Judy, I think if we publicize it right, maybe 1,500." And I thought she was going to choke. She said, "No, I'm being serious." I said, "I'm being serious." I said, "I think we'll get 1,500 first year, and after that, if it goes the way I expect it'll go, we'll sell it out at 2,500. And I wouldn't be surprised, like many other races, and well, very few races, a week, 10 days, the race will sell out online. Come on, you're pulling. I said, Judy, listen to me. She listened to me. Year one, 1,730 women showed up for the first Iron Girl. And year two, three, four, for the next 10 years, the race was sold out in 1 year, 2 years, it sold out in 3 days online. Our online registration crashed several times. But the thing that really kicked it off was 3 weeks before the race. I said to Judy, we're going to have a practice triathlon. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I said, well, we're going to use Wild Lake. And I paid money to the county. We had open water swim. I would say 75% of the women who entered never swam open water. We had Mid Maryland Tri Club and a lot of other swimmers with baby swim buoys
Yeah,
and
but
whatnot,
buddy swimmers. Yeah.
swim buddies
Yeah, I
in
was
the
a
lake.
swim
We,
buddy.
we measure the lake.
Yep.
The race was going to be uh, a 1K swim, a 30K bike, and a 5K run. The run was all inside the park. And so she couldn't believe that we were going to do that. I said, we're going to do it. So on this particular Saturday morning, the first year, and we did it every year, the first year we had 700 women show up on Saturday morning, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, fill the parking lot, and I put them in waves, and off they went. Then they did the bike, and we had bike support from Mid Maryland Tri Club and my cycling club, and then they did the run. After that, we had a mini expo. I had guest speakers. We did a raffle, talked about the sport, et cetera, et cetera. And every year after that, we topped off, I think the next year, 850 women. And it became like we had women. The most beautiful thing I thought was to look at the average woman had never done anything. They were clearly unfit. We ended up forming a Baltimore and Washington, D.C. Black Women's Triathlon Club.
Yeah.
They formed it on their own.
Yep.
They came, and the bathing suits were not what you would call speedos of today. Um, Many of them were scared to get in the water, but their friends said, "Joanne, you're getting your ass in the water." And I'd say, "Melissa, Joan, Nancy, come over here, escort her in the water, and swim with her." And we had kayakers in the water, of course, to help out. It was a love fest. I mean, it was just phenomenal. When Judy heard about it, she didn't believe it. I invited her and her team to come up the next year, and they came up and they couldn't believe it. Our practice was larger than any Iron Girl event went on triathlon to the day. And that went on until 2010, 2012, when Iron Girl ceased to exist for whatever reason. But we put our mark, and that was really the beginning, I think, for really focusing on more women in sport. And it became a cool thing to be an Iron Girl.
I
At the finish line, like in Kona, if you ever been to Kona, and when you come across the line, they'll say your name, Rob Vigorito, Columbia, Maryland. You are an Ironman. You know, the great Mike Riley. And I imitated the same thing. So when the women came across, by then we were pretty sophisticated, had some great computer people and great timing systems. So we had timing chips out on the run course. So I knew, well in advance who was coming to the finish line. So Maria Dells, you are an Iron Girl. And we invited the husbands down. We talked to the husbands who were at the finish line. They were all excited, proud of their wives and girlfriends. And we invited the husbands to come up with the children in the finish line and put the
yeah.
finisher medal on their wife or their
which
girlfriend or their
which was very rare because races did not want non-staff or athletes in the
exactly,
finisher chute.
exactly.
It was
And I think
rare.
that really made it even more special. People talked about that, and I got to tell you, being there, I had more tears in my eyes. People come up to me, hugging me and thanking our finish line team
Yep.
because I never thought I could do this. Are you kidding? No. And in the lead up to the race, when we did the pre-race meetings at the hotel, I would talk about the meaning of Iron Girl and what Judy's theme was. If you remember, Iron Girl looked like kind of a butterfly, and the in Judy's world, that butterfly, she had a name, and the butterfly was Grace. And so I said to her, I said, "So how'd you come up with the name Grace?" And she said, "Well, this is a graceful event, and Grace has the spirit within her to be great." And we talked about in Kona, I mean, before you do the race and leading up to your start in Digny Beach in Kona, they talk about your mana. And mana in Hawaiian is your inner power, your inner strength. And I took that and I used that with Iron Girl and talked about your inner strength and your mana. And if you don't let it come out, you're never going to know. And I have more women come up and say how they never thought they could run a race. They never thought they could get a job. They never thought they could finish a career. And doing Iron Girl gave them the confidence and the feeling that they could do anything. They could conquer anything, whether it's being a good wife, a good worker, a good mom, no matter what. At the same time, when we were doing the practice swims, we put up a big billboard, an easel. We handed out magic markers, and we said to each woman, "We want you to come up on the billboard or the easel board. We want you to write down why you want to be an Iron Girl, what it means to you." And we had any number of, I mean, we filled the board. And I'm doing it for my mom who died of cancer. I'm doing it for my daughter to show her that, see what her mommy can do, that type of thing. And all the women on this call, I think you can appreciate what that might mean. And now I'm going back some 35 years. Put yourself in that position. And maybe you never heard of triathlon. No one ever challenged you to do something of that nature. And all of a sudden you're coming across the finish line, and we didn't give a doggone when you finished. Our theme was winning is finishing. And put on that medal being put on around your neck by your husband or your father or your mom, whatever. It was the most emotional thing that I could ever remember. And of course, then we always had at the race site a huge post-race party. Daryl Beard, my good friend, live music to spice up the morning, and great food. And again, MMTC was instrumental in helping us pack the air with volunteers, distributing food and drink and the awards. And I always felt like the awards had to be something special. I don't think anybody ever gave out Waterford Crystal. If you're familiar with Waterford Crystal or Baccarat Crystal, that's what I gave out to the top finishers because I felt like they need to be rewarded, properly. We weren't making any money. I wasn't making any money. That wasn't the purpose. The purpose was charity, but also honoring and acknowledging the greatness of the people that participated. And that just made it even more special. So with that success, go back to 1983, when my first triathlon, the Richmond Triathlon, a run, bike, swim, a 1K swim in a 50-meter pool. And you can imagine after running and biking and try to swim in a pool, your legs are dead. But one, and that was pretty cool. Uh, and At the same time, a great gentleman on the eastern shore of Maryland, Oxford, Maryland, Fletcher Hanks. Fletcher was a graduate of Lehigh University. Fletcher passed away about 15 years ago. He was a bit of a curmudgeon in a way, but he was a bright, sharp guy. And actually, he fought in World War II and flew the bulge, the China route, flying military personnel and hardware over the hump, it was called. If you read about the China hump in World War II. And he lived in Oxford with his wife, Jane, and he created in 1983, the 1980, what became like the first, probably long distance triathlon in the East Coast called the Oxford Triathlon and Relay.
Uh-oh. think we lost him. Oh, he's back. Oh no. Stand by, guys. He just dropped off there. Sorry about that. We'll give him a second to come back in. Let me.
You back?
Yes, gotcha.
Okay. So Fletcher created the Oxford Triathlon in 1980 and relays. In Oxford, Maryland, if you're ever on the Eastern Shore, you know in the summertime it's blazing hot, particularly in Oxford. And the race was a 2.4-mile swim in the Treat-Avon River, followed by a 50-mile bike, followed by a 20-mile run. That was his form of equilateral triathlon. He looked up all the national and world records and determined that a 50-mile bike equaled a 20-mile run in effort and timing. He always felt that the cyclist always had an advantage over a runner. So he said, hell with that. You're going to bike second. You're going to run last. And I did that. I think five Oxfords. Um, and my first year, I think I did 8 hours and change. And imagine running 20 miles in the day, 85, 90-degree heat from the beach and the Treat Avon River to the Oxford Community Center. It's all flat, it's all open. There's not a bit of shade, and so you can imagine what that's like. However, Fletcher was the first to get prize money, and if you're in the sport for a while, you've heard of Dave Scott, maybe you've heard of Scott Molina, maybe heard of Eni Jones,
Yep.
Colleen Cannon in the day, uh, Lynn Brooks from Baltimore, and several other top triathletes from the West Coast because he was giving out prize money. They all came. And I think around 85, 86, when Profile came out with the first wetsuit. And Scott Molina shows up in a full-length wetsuit. And the race was always the second week of June, which Eagle Man, I kept that the same. And so the tread event could be anywhere from mid 60s to low 70s. Eni Jones showed up that same year. She was an All-American swimmer at Florida in a full Speedo, one-piece suit, and she beat Molina out of the water. And that became Fletcher's pièce de resistance, that particular race. For those of you who have done races, you've heard of Porta Johns. I think this is kind of a great anecdote. So back in the day, just so you know where we all came from, Fletcher was the first to the transition area were Quonset huts. You know what a Quonset hut is? Like a tent.
Yeah.
And it was not always necessarily male female. Whoever got to the tent first. So, and of course, in the day, Fletcher was kind of a tightwad. I'm not even sure if porta johns had been created or available at the time. So what do you use if you had to go potty? Well, in each tent, there were a couple of 5-gallon paint cans with trash can liners, and you sit on the top of a paint can and you did your business. And that's the truth because I sat on many of them. And I thought that gives you an idea how far triathlon has come. Okay. And so in 1988, 89, Fletcher was going to retire. And by then, of course, he had moved the race from Oxford across the river into Cambridge. It became the Cambridge Endurance Triathlon. I heard about it. I called him. I said, I'll buy it from you. He said, you won't buy it. I'll give it to you. So he gave me the race in 89, 90, 91, 92, became the Cambridge Endurance Triathlon. And I decided to swim from the Talbot County side, cross the river. Had to get the Coast Guard involved. So it was swim, bike, run, and the bike was similar to the Eagle Man course. Um, and that's the way it went for several years. And my goal was to be making an Ironman qualifier, which never became until 1996. By then, my wife said, why are we spending all of our own money to put these races on? We're losing money left and right. I think we capped out at about 200 people one year. I said, I believe we're going to get an Ironman qualifier. I know we're going to get it. 1996, Ironman decided we'll give you an Ironman qualifier. So 1997, the race was born. In preparing for the course and the race, I was doing surveillance of the course, and I said, Cambridge Endurance Triathlon ain't going to make it. I got to come up with something better. So my buddies and I are biking through the Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge, and I spot two soaring eagles flying over my head. And this hat and visor, Eagle Man was born. And in the day, because it was the Blackwater National, it was the Blackwater Eagle Man Triathlon. And it stayed that way for several years till Ironman changed all the names around and became Ironman 70.3 Eagle Man.
Yep.
Um, the first year in 97, we had over 500 participate. After that, it just shot up. And every year after that, we were at 3,000 participants. We were named a Kona qualifier for all the years, except maybe the last 4 or 5 when they changed the qualifying. We were a 70.3 when that became a national and world championship. And I made sure we invited all the top pros. I mean, you name the top pro in the day. My favorite was Natasha Bodman. Many may not have heard of her. She won Eagle Man 5 times. I invited her from Switzerland, flew her over on our dime. She stayed in a couple homestays in Cambridge. Um, we had the great Craig Alexander, Timmy DeBoom,
Yep.
you
Uh,
name the pro.
Jacobson.
Scott Molina came, um,
What was
Chrissy Wellington, Linda
Jacobson
Carfrey.
that lived up there in Baltimore County?
What's that?
What was the pro Jacobson? He lived in Baltimore County.
Troy.
Troy.
Troy Jacobson. He
Yeah.
had, yep, Troy raced and he won it one year.
Yep.
Uh,
If
and he
if y'all
formed a
are
triathlon
if y'all
academy.
are ever in Jerry Boyle Park and you want to see the people that Vigo brought, the Iron Man statue
Yep.
memorial is in the park and it lists all the winners. I want to say up to 2018 maybe or 19, and that's when it kind of fell off. But that
Yeah. When Jerry, yeah.
after
Um,
Jerry's passing is when it
after
kind
Jerry
of.
passed. Yeah.
Yep.
And in that one in particular, I should go back when I decided that we were going to do this in Cambridge. I decided, well, I'm not going to be able to do it unless I go to the board meeting. So went to the city council meetings and the county council meetings, made my presentation. They all looked at me like I was nuts. I told them what we were doing it for. We were gonna put Cambridge on the map worldwide. You know, Cambridge is only 25,000, the entire county of Dorchester. That's where I met Jerry Boyle, at the time a restaurateur, Scottish military retiree. We became like brothers, and Jerry was the glue that put the race together in Cambridge in terms of volunteers and whatnot. We dispensed. We actually had a budget of I think $25,000 was in my budget just for charitable donations to all the different organizations in Cambridge. And as you know, if you've done Eagle Man, you did it in the early days. 700, 800 volunteers was not uncommon. Um, I can remember, putting the race on. It's always hot, and for all the years, I said, Jerry, we need ice. He goes, how much do you think I need? Well, we had one year 20,000 pounds of ice. We had ice chests, at every run aid station, and people knew it. And then we installed showers, portable showers at the finish line.
Yep.
I mean, all these were first. No one had ever done this stuff before. We had kiddie pools. People finish the race, jump in a kiddie pool. We pour ice on them.
The
You were
one
one of
thing.
them, Dells.
Oh, for sure. The one thing I tell people about the old Eagle Man that they think I'm nuts about is on the original, we'll call it the modern course, right? So the course through when you were the RD. On the run course, you had the out and back out on Horn Point.
Warren Point Road, yeah.
And at the turnaround, you guys had snowballs.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were just ice cubes with snowball syrup on them.
Yeah.
And they were like the greatest thing in the world. And I like tell people this story, and they're like, God, this crazy old man's making stuff up. And I'm like, nope, they were
Well,
all grape. You couldn't chew them because they were just ice cubes, but you didn't care. Like, it's
yeah.
getting
Yeah,
bad.
that was Jerry. That was Jerry's idea. He had a good friend in the snowball business in Cambridge. The guy came out, had all different flavors of syrup. And yeah, we, I mean, again, these are the kind of things that people say, now I know where the money's going. I mean, we didn't spare any expense, especially, on the swim. I brought the Ocean City Beach Patrol in. We had 25, 30 kayakers.
They still bring the beach patrol to this
Yeah.
day. They still
Well,
bring the same.
John Burtman
Yep.
became a good friend. John was still, I believe, the swim director. And of
Yeah,
course,
he oversees. It's Mike Stewart, I think, is the director, but he like
yeah,
still has all the connections, so he's still
yeah.
there. Yep.
So Jerry was really a great guy, and sadly he passed away in his sleep in 2019. Um, but back up a bit. So in 2006, I said, there's no Ironman distance race in the Mid Atlantic. So I talked to Jerry. He says, "What?" I said, "What do you think?" He goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" "I want to create the Chesapeake Man." And the idea was full distance Ironman. And if you've ever been to Kona, you know that as you're sitting on the beach in Kona, start of the swim, there's 4 or 5 helicopters. There you go, Chesapeake Man Endurance. That's it, baby. And I got the idea. I just read the book Chesapeake by James Michener, and I thought, what a great way to honor the Eastern Shore. So in Kona, they have helicopters. Well, Jerry knew a guy, a developer, forget his name, lived in Cambridge, owned a helicopter. I said, get the guy where I want a helicopter at the swim. So the new Hyatt resort had opened. Talked to the Hyatt. I told them what I was going to do. They were off the wall. Like, you want to do what? Well, they said whatever you want. So we started at the Hyatt on the beach at the Hyatt with the helicopter. My photographer in the helicopter doing overheads, and we plotted a course. You swam downriver under the bridge to Great Marsh Park at the time, now Jerry Bio Park, and then you did the bike. It was basically 2 big loops, and then the run. And it came down the center. Eventually, it came down the center of town, and that was it. And we had the post race party the next day at the Hyatt Resort. Beautiful awards. They always did glass crystal awards and whatnot. Big morning breakfast. People loved it, and that became the standard. And the next thing you know, Bill Scott was putting on in North Carolina, full distance Ironman race, and we were the only two at the time. And then eventually, Ironman came to me, and and they said, "Do you think this could become Ironman Maryland?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" And it's about that time I retired. Jerry took over and became Ironman Maryland. Of course, Ironman Maryland and whatnot. So when you really think about it, you go back in history. Cambridge is the smallest community in the world hosting Ironman events. Not only that, it's one of the few that hosts a 70.3 and a full distance Ironman. And when you stop and think the economic impact on the Eastern Shore of these two races for the community was enormous. And that's probably one of my greatest accomplishments, if you will, and emotional things when I think about it and look back at the history of the all these events, particularly Iron Girl. About 19, around 2000, got a chance to meet some doctors at Walter Reed in Washington Hospital Center, and they came to me and said, "We want to put on a race to celebrate America's veterans." Okay, what do you want to do? Can you do a triathlon? Yeah, of course. So 2002 or three it was, we debuted the Celebration Triathlon, a sprint race in Columbia. That sold out at 2,000 people. And we welcomed military veterans. I personally trained a veteran who it was injured by an IED in Iraq. He had head trauma, brain trauma, closed head injury, and I found out he was a cyclist in the Walter Reed campus, and he was riding a bike that didn't fit him. So Alan Davis and myself got together and went to Larry Black, College Park Cycles. At the time, he opened up his new shop in Mount Airy.
Yep.
and we bought him a bike, a custom made recumbent bike, all the bells and whistles. I think it was like $7,000, $8,000. Alan and I paid for it. We presented it to him at a MMTC event at Princeton Sports. He did the race, and then in training, actually, I trained him on the course, and he got so cocky. He said, "I'm going to beat your ass on this course," and it was tough. You may recall the Columbia course on the way back by the what's the private school, the big hill climb,
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah.
the academy on Homewood Road.
Yep.
I
Climbing
can't
Homewood on the way
I
back up.
can't think of it. Anyway, he challenged me there, and he was
Mount Albert.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he was challenging me. And I said, "Get away! You're not going to beat me. Come on." Well, I let him beat me up the climb, but that was his greatest thing. But more importantly, we met other veterans who were disabled, a couple that were blind. We had kids. We had a kids division. I helped train a blind black young man who was, I think, 12 years old, and he had an assistant with him. He did the race. I mean, in the end, he showed me. He said, "I can do push-ups." He did push-ups in the transition area, and that's it became the thing. And so Celebration Triathlon was a big deal. One of the best we ever did for the right cause. Um, More and more veterans came out. They became, we had training programs for them at the hospital set up at Walter Reed, and became a huge success and raised a lot of awareness for what disabled veterans, anybody disabled, can do if you just give them an opportunity to participate. And of course, MMTC at the time was again huge in the transition area, providing support, technical support, logistical support, training support. You guys were always Johnny on the spot to support what we did. And of course, we made contributions to MMTC as well, financially and otherwise. Um, so it was a great marriage, a great association for all the years. And so my the last thing I want to say about what I did, what we did, was in 2005. I was in Kona. I raced Kona 91, 3, 8, 98, 2005, 6, and 9. 2005, I was there to race, and I heard about this fellow named John Blaze,
Yep.
eventually be referred to as the Blaze Man.
Blaze man. Yeah.
At the age of 34, was diagnosed in California with ALS, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease. If you know what ALS is, you know it's evil. There's no cure. Well, John wanted to do Ironman. His neurologist said, "You can't do it. You'll never do it." My good friend Bob Laird, who was the medical director, okayed it. John raced it. His race number was 179. And he did the race, suffering from ALS. And he finished the race in 17 hours and 40 minutes. I was there at the finish line and got to meet his parents. At the time at University of Maryland Med School, I was in pathology and pediatric research. We formed the Human Brain Bank to study neurodevelopmental illness. And John wanted to form a foundation to raise awareness of ALS. I talked to him and his parents. I said, "John, if you're gonna walk the walk, you got to talk the talk." He signed up as a brain donor. In 2006, he came back, and now he's in a wheelchair. And of course, he died uh, later the next year, 2007. He was living in Fort Myers, and I had promised John at the time of his death that I would personally do the brain recovery from him in Fort Myers. And I did. I flew down, recovered John's organs, his brain, and spinal cord, peripheral nerves, etc. And we brought him back to our lab in Maryland. And that was one of my most fond memories of John. Um, he always had a saying, "So others may live." And I have a plaque on my wall here in Naples, where I am now, attesting to that. Um, the Blaze Man role was something, remember, he said, "I'm going to finish Ironman even if I have to roll across the finish line." And he did. And of course, the Blaze Man role became synonymous with John. And thousands of people worldwide would do the Blaze Man row. I did it in Kona my last year, and Deb, what's Deb, the attorney?
Salts.
Deb Saltz became a staunch supporter of Blaze Man, and every race she did, she rolled across the finish line as well. So that really was very special. And then a year later, I was in San Diego for the Endurance Sports Awards with Bob Babbitt, and John uh, was awarded the Athlete of the Year. Um, I had a picture with him, myself, and Scott Tinley together with John. And again, John passed in May 27th, 2007. But and that foundation still goes on, raising money for research into ALS, finding some very interesting things about spinal cord neurons, etc. Never wanted to raise money to make a better wheelchair. It was always about research to find a cure, find a drug, trying to treat a diagnostic test or tool that can, diagnose ALS early on. So that's pretty much, the history of Tri-Columbia and all that we did. It was just great to go. I was very fortunate. My wife Sharon and I were invited every year to Kona when we weren't racing. So I was there probably 12, 13 times. We worked the finish line. I put many plumeria lays on many athletes, escorted many to the medical tent, was part of the pre and post race festivities with Diana Birch, the race director at the time. I can recall all the swims at Digme Beach. If you didn't know, swim start, it's a little spit of land. It's called Digme, as in Digme Beach, because the idea was, hey, dig me, look at me,
No,
and
no ego at
that was
all.
always pretty cool. That was always pretty cool. But yeah, and final thought, when we were there, it was pretty common. Every morning we would get there about a week or 10 days before. And after you do the morning swim, and everybody had to go to breakfast. The best place to go to breakfast was Badass Coffee on Ali'i Drive. And lo and behold, that's where Badass Coffee, Kona Coffee, among the best in the world, was founded. Well, lo and behold, we got here in Naples, Florida. And would you not believe, downtown Naples, there's a Badass Coffee. And I went in there several years ago on a lark, and I see all this Hawaiian theme, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Picture of Duka Hanamoku, the ambassador of Aloha, creator of the longboard surfing back in the late 1800s. And I talked to the manager, go, yeah, this is one from the original Badass Coffee in Kona. Now there's two Badass coffee shops in Naples, Florida, and we have events there. It's just really very very cool. But when I walk in there, it just brings back all these great memories of Iron Man and Hawaii and everything associated with Iron Man. So it's been a blessing in many many ways. But so, is there any questions for anybody? Happy to answer them. I've got my, I'll just stand up, my Columbia Tri
Ah, there you
shirt
go.
on. Here
I
you
like
are.
I like it.
And, but happy to answer any questions. I sent Tim a bunch of goodies. I'm
Yep.
probably going to clean out some more, Tim. I'll send you some more if you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
um, I've been starting to. I mean, it started, I guess, when CTA was going, right
yeah,
when it was closing. You gave me like a bunch of the old posters that you just had, old
yeah,
race posters, and so I've kind of become like a collector of the history of it.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I'll
and
send you some more when I go through
yeah,
got a
yeah.
storage unit
Well,
down here. I've got a lot of stuff in there too. But
I'm gonna
it's
start
been,
cataloging it and sharing,
yeah,
kind of creating like a photo drive and that kind of stuff. I had
well, I
somebody
really appreciate that. And I've got I've got a whole notebook full of newspaper clippings and articles from the early days of Columbia.
yeah.
Um, is the Columbia Flyer newspaper magazine still being published?
I have no idea. Does somebody that live in Columbia know? Jeff? Go ahead, Jeff.
No.
No.
No,
No?
unfortunately, it's not around anymore. They're actually redoing that building that used to house it right next to Princeton Sports. They're going to put
You
some sort
finally got
of
to take that down, huh?
yeah. It was a beautiful building.
Oh
I thought it
yeah,
was really cool looking, and I was kind of disappointed to hear the like mid-century modern look, but yeah,
yeah,
they're taking that down, and it's mostly the best way to get stuff around here is like Patch. Have you seen that? It's like
yeah.
yeah,
I'm on Columbia Patch.
yep.
Yeah.
That's typically what I use
Okay.
to find out about stuff, and then the
Yeah.
various Columbia Facebook groups. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
great. Yeah, I knew the Bob Moon. His name was. His wife's name was Jean. She was a big local politician in Columbia. Lovely lady, and she had a consulting company. Bob Moon was a national architect. He designed that building, the Columbia Flyer building, actually. It was dormant, for the last like 20 years or so. And the reason they didn't take it down apparently was there was asbestos in there, and they didn't want to fool around at the time. And then, of course, Princeton sold, and last I was up there, now it's a 7-Eleven
yeah,
and Bundt Cakes and whatever else is
yep,
there.
yep.
But now we were in Columbia I came from Southern Connecticut, and after school was at University of Maryland Med School, and then lived in Columbia for 39 years. And um, so Columbia was a great place to live, raise a family, et cetera, et cetera. So but Bob Moon back in I think the late 70s designed that building. And of course, Zeke Alinsky was the first publisher, I think. That was a big deal and then during the day. But great experience, but Tri-Columbia in my mind will always live on as a precursor to a lot of great things in the Mid-Atlantic region. And uh, very excited for where triathlon went, where how many different events developed as a result of what we did in the early days. And now my good friend Steve Del Monte is doing great work in New Jersey, Philadelphia area, et cetera, et cetera. And matter of fact, final thought, Steve and I were asked to bring Challenge. Have you ever heard the Challenge
I I was there
National
the first
Series?
I was there the first year in 14.
Yeah, Challenge Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Steve and I put that on, and we got invited to Challenge Roth in Germany to see the race that year. And we went over to Germany and followed the Challenge Roth, which became the largest Ironman distance race over what 5,000 participants.
Yeah.
Phenomenal race, but it was an honor to work with them. And of course, from that came Atlantic City 70.3 and Atlantic City Triathlon, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
all good stuff. So
All right. And go ahead, Jeff.
Good question.
Yeah.
So yeah, quick question. So we're doing the water stop again at Ironman Maryland,
Hmm.
and I got to thinking, I was like, how long have we been doing this? Do you have any recollection of how long Mid Maryland has been volunteering at the water stop
The 100
on
mile race
Christchurch
station.
at
Yeah.
Chesty Man and Ironman Maryland?
yeah, well, the Chelsea Man was I think 2006. I'm going to say shortly thereafter. So I would say for Eagle Man as well as Chesapeake Man, close to 20 years. 20 years. And the eventually we had competitions because all the tri clubs came. The tri clubs in Massachusetts, Virginia, DC, Delaware, New York, and we had it was tent city in the transition area along the finish line of all the tri clubs, and we didn't charge any money. We said, "Come, park your butt down." They would come and they grilled hot dogs, hamburgers, and had massage therapists there and whatnot. We did too for the race. We had some great massage people for the race. But yeah, MMTC was there for a good 20 years, putting on, supporting the race. And of course, that's a big deal, especially in a small town like Cambridge, where you would
Oh
think, how are
yeah,
you going to get 700 volunteers? But that's where Jerry told me, and then I learned I got a chance to meet all the political people and realized it's a poor town. So I said, we're going to come into your town. We're going to leave money, but I want to contribute. So we would contribute to the boys club, the girls club, the track club, the soccer club, the nursing, you name the club in the school. Um, we would give them 500 to $1,000 for the weekend, to work the race. No matter how many hours it was. And that was a big deal. That got publicized and the town came out in droves and we got great publicity. And we filled all the hotels, and people were staying in Salisbury as well. All the Eastern Shore places that they could. And then, of course, Jerry had the idea of doing a home watch, and he had 25, 30 homes that people would for the pros to house the pros for the weekend. Or in the case of Natasha Bodman, she would come 2 weeks before, and one of the owners who had a beautiful home on the Chop Tank River housed her for 2 weeks and she would fly over with her husband from Switzerland. And she and I became great friends. In my garage here, I've got plaques with signed by Natasha, thanking me and whatnot. And she became a great friend. She's now, I think, like 56, 55 now, 57, something like that. But yeah, those were great days, and we couldn't have done it without Princeton sports. Feet first in the early days, and of course, Mid Maryland Tri Club, and it's a great marriage, and I'm glad you guys are still going strong, and it's a great legacy.
Yeah,
When
we'll
I look
be
at all the things that I have here, I think about it all the time, and when I do my training here, or bike rides, et cetera, et cetera, people here know. I can't tell how many people in Naples, Florida, have done Eagle Man. I've done Ironman Maryland. When I went to the first couple meetings from Naples Velo. I walk in the door and they go, "Are you Vigo from Maryland?" I said, "Yeah, why?" And they said, "I did your race." I'm like, "Holy shit."
you can't
So
escape
yeah,
them.
it's yeah, Naples is a great place for multi-sport and fitness and training, and we have a lot of open water swims in the Gulf, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all good.
I got one. Well, one, you're talking about the time frame in the marriage. This is actually our 25th year for the club, so it's kind of crazy to think
Yeah,
that it's been around that long.
well, that's
Um,
great. Yeah, well, I mean, that's because of what you did and all the other clubs, and we were doing it. USAT came up with a national club championship. I think they still do it now, I think. But the sports changed to a certain degree, I think, when it got into the Olympics. Things changed. The idea of draft illegal races and all that stuff came into being. Personally, I don't think triathlon is exciting as it used to be. I'm not a favor because basically it's a swim run event interspersed with a bike ride. If you
yep,
can ride 25 miles, 25 miles an hour in a draft, who can't if you're fit? And it's a matter, can you run a sub 32 10K?
yep,
So for guys and about sub 34 for women.
yeah,
So I mean it's exciting to a point, but I think the past it was so much more exciting and brought people into the sport. And but I'm a member of USA Triathlon, and I converse with my good friend Timmy Yant periodically. Tim's probably the oldest employee. He's been here over 30 years after he got out of college. And but yeah, it's been a great thing, and coaching and race directing, something I never thought I'd want to do, but just fell into our laps, and the time was right. Oh, by the way, final thought. Remember, I told you that at the start, I bought the book How to Do a Triathlon by Sally Edwards. I sent her a check for $100 that she never cashed. She never knew where it came from, and I emailed her and I told her, I said, we felt bad, copying your book. And she said, I'm glad you put races on, but she never cashed the check. But we didn't want to be accused of plagiarism, and taking her book and copying it. But that's how we started, at the Columbia Swim Center, and handed the pages out. And sadly, I'll close with, Sam Levine has passed away, Vince Campagna, Ray Patricia. I think Miles Weigel is still alive. Mike Miles relocated to Marana, Arizona. I know Troy Jacobson, Rio, okay, Troy's in outside of, I think, Tucson,
Yeah, he's got like a
Phoenix or
ranch. He's
Tucson.
got a ranch now and
Yeah,
stuff.
he's got a ranch. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's got a
Yep.
couple kids and whatnot. And he's still doing triathlon academy type stuff,
Yeah.
a lot
Can't.
of mountain
Yes.
biking.
Yep. Camps
Um,
and camps up Mount Lemon and
yeah,
the whole shebang out
exactly.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
I got
So,
hired. As a parting note, I got one Vigo story that I've told many times. Around this would have been maybe around 2010 or so. You had it was either a purple or a blue bike. I don't remember if it was and you'll know it was either like a Pinarello or a Colnago, I think, and it had like European monuments painted on it.
Fundry S, I still have the bike in my garage here. It was a
Okay.
Fundry S named after Maurizio Fundry S, who won the World Championships 1983-84, full carbon
Yep.
with
Yeah.
the with all the monuments in Rome
Yep. Yeah.
pantographed into the
Pisa
carbon.
and the yeah. Okay.
Pisa, the Duomo in Milan. Yep, I
Okay.
still have it.
So we were doing a ride. It was you, me, Bill Wheeler, but bunch of people. We were doing the old 10 up ride, right? All the big climbs in Columbia and Ellicott City.
Yep,
And you got a flat tire. And then we looked at your tire, and your tires were pretty much bald. They were showing cords. And so we had to go to the race pace at Normandy and wait for it to open to get tires to install. And right, and you flatted, and it was like we looked at the tire, and it was like, oh, we can do the goo packet trick or the dollar
yep,
trick, right, to get you there. And
yep.
I said, here, I got $1, and you looked at me and you said, no, no, sir, this bike only takes 50s and hundreds. And
I sure remember that. I remember that.
And then
And to this day,
we rode over there and waited for them to open to put new tires on your bike to finish the ride.
yep. And to this day, when we had a flat down here a couple of years ago, my buddy wanted to do the patch, pulled out a dollar bill. I said, dude, if it's, I'll change the damn tire, but you better have 100 in there. What do you think? What are you talking about? A dollar? This is Naples, Florida, buddy.
Well, I always thought that that was the funniest thing in the world, and I'm glad that that still lives on somewhere because I was starting to think I misremembered it. Um,
No, you didn't. That was great. That was great stuff. Now, those are all, as a matter of fact, before you go, since you brought that up, that bike from 2000, from 1999 to 2004, my buddy Max and I and a few other guys in Colombia went to the Tour de France. We rode the tour. So I've done every climb in the Alps, the Pyrenees. Of course, the tour is going on now. And we did every climb, every mountain in the Alps, the Pyrenees, the Massif. And uh, that bike, that Fondriest, that climbed Alpe d'Huez 2 times with
nice.
me on it. And I've got the photographs here of me because if you climb Alpe d'Huez, it's 21 switchbacks.
Yep.
And about switchback, you start from the bottom 21, 20, 19, 18, etc. And about three from the top, there's always a guy with a tripod and a camera. And he takes your picture, puts his card in your back pocket. When you finish, you go to his website, find your number, order the picture, he sends it to you, and I've got them here hanging on my wall.
There
Picture
you
of me and Max in our U.S. postal kits
Oh
in
God.
2001, 2002, climbing Alpe d'Huez, which was pretty cool. And but
That's
oh,
awesome.
one final thing. I know it's getting late.
Nope, go
You
for
might
it.
appreciate this. One of our good friends in the Tri Club at the time, Steve Oughton, great triathlete. Steve was diagnosed with testicular cancer many years before. Of course, Lance Armstrong was diagnosed in '96. In '97, he announced he was going to form the Lance Armstrong Foundation and create resurrect a race in Dallas or Austin, Texas, called the Race for the Roses.
Yep.
Steve was about to die. He had metastatic cancer to his liver. We met Steve, 12 of us, in his condo in Columbia, and we said, Steve, we're going to go to Lance's race. We're going to wear your tri kits, your bike jerseys. We're going to raise $5,000 in your name, and I'm personally going to present it to Lance Armstrong. And nothing had been arranged. But I had a contact at USAT who put me in contact with Lance's publicist at the time, a woman named Stacy in Austin. Called her, told her what we were going to do. They couldn't believe it. We were the first group to raise money for his foundation. They flew us down from Baltimore. We had a press conference in the Hyatt Regency Hotel on Lake Austin in downtown Austin, Texas. And who do you think was at the press conference beside the press? The great Phil Liggett,
Ah,
announcer for the Tour de France,
Bob, nice.
Paul Sherwin,
Yep.
um,
Bob.
Sean Kelly, great cyclist,
Yep.
Eric Heiden,
Yep.
Davis Finney, Dan Jansen, and Mark Allen of six-time Ironman fame.
Yeah.
And
The
we had
group.
we had a press conference. They asked us all questions about what we're doing there, why we're doing it, and whatnot. Next 2 days later, we're riding with Lance in the race. He and I are riding side by side. And that night at his villa on Lake Travis, we presented him with a big foam core check made in how we had created the Steve Orton Foundation. Gave Lance the check. Uh, then we took a tour of Lance's house, and that was that. Went back the next year, did the same thing. Then I met Greg LeMond, and of course Miguel Indurain was there, five-time winner of the tour. Did the ride again, and had a chance to ride close with Sean Kelly, three-time Paris-Roubaix champ, and this is just those are great memories, great experiences. So every other tour is on. I'm excited because I know all the routes.
Yeah.
This year they're going to do a double climb of Alpe d'Huez, so
Yep.
I can't wait to see that and see the hotel we stayed in at the top of Alpe d'Huez. So it's all good stuff. And thanks to MMTC for allowing me to share some of my triathlon history with all of you because you were all a major part of it.
Nah, Vigo, we really appreciate you giving us some time. I just, it's like knew that you're part of the fabric of the sport, and especially here,
Thanks.
here in the Mid Atlantic. And so I wanted you to share some of the stories that many of us old timers, as those who've been around in the sport for a long time, have heard many of on rides and that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you taking your time to share it with us.
Absolutely.
What's that?
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the
Yeah,
time as
tell
well.
tell Sharon we said hi.
Will
Um,
do.
keep up that the PT. For those that don't know, this man still rides a ton and just had himself a pretty gnarly wreck with maybe 2 months ago or so.
Yeah.
Um, and so he's on the mend, and hopefully the next time you're up this way, we can catch up.
Be up there in September for a National Porsche Club meeting in Columbia where the National Porsche Club America is located. And I'll
Okay.
make sure I give you a buzz and
Yeah.
we'll get together and have some
Make,
pizza or something.
there you go. Make sure it's not Ironman Maryland week because I'll be busy. But if it's not, I'm there.
It's the second week of September.
Then you're good because Maryland's always the third week, just like old Chesapeake
Exactly.
man. So you'll be good. Yeah,
Exactly.
let us know and we'll
We'll do.
we'll make
All
something
this.
happen. Thank you again, Vigo. Have a good
You
night.
got it.
Thank you everybody. We'll get this shared to social media and to the email listserv. I'll send it to you as well, Vigo, so that you have it. Thank you all. Thank you, MMTC. Thank you for everything, Vigo. Catch up with you guys soon.